and also J. Herbert Stone, the regional director. Well, the regional director, he wasn't very comfortable there, and he didn't say anything. He didn't take any side, he didn't make any statement, he just kind of pointed out what we were talking about. I had done considerable study on say forest activities, and had found out that some of the surveys they had made of how much timber they had in the Northwest were underestimated. So my whole point was, I came there and said, you know, we can have both. We can have forestry, and we can have, say, at that point, wilderness areas. And of course, Riley Johnson is coming out against all of this. And finally he made this statement. He says, you're not going to catch me at any time going into a wilderness and carrying my wife on my back. And so it came my turn to speak, and I got up and I said, well, I know of people who have carried their young children on their back and have hiked in the wilderness areas, wilderness-like areas. And I know one man who climbed to the top of Mount Rainier and climbed and camped overnight on the top of Mount Rainier, and he was 80 years old. Bless him, I can appreciate that. And then I said, and after all, said the greatest teacher of all time went into the wilderness in Galilee to recreate body and soul. Well, that brought down the house, even though they were foresters. They knew that I inserted a shiv into him a little bit, but he wasn't going to be stopped. He came back and said, yes, it is true that Jesus Christ did go into the wilderness at Galilee. He says, but I want you to know he was chased in there by the devils. Well, I didn't have a comeback with that. I should have said something like, you know, kind of a Walter Mitty thing, that well, we have society out there, and society creates some problems that seem like the people are living in a devilish time, and these people like to get out in the wilderness to get away from this kind of a spirit, but I didn't do it. Don't tell me you don't have a mic.
Oh no, I'm just listening. I'm just going to listen to your.
Okay.
Just making sure that it's.
So Riley Johnson was kind of the head of that group, and then there was the mayor Cedro Woolley testified in a Jackson hearing that was done in Mount Vernon, and the Sportsman's Council, the Washington State Sportsman Council, was also had some opposition to that, and the Cattlemen's Association, and the Grange. But really, the only big opposition that came out of that was the Outdoors Unlimited, and the support they were getting from some of the, say, timber companies. Well, we were working on Jackson, and Jackson finally said he'd do that, and he came up with a bill then in 1965, I think it was. In which was a Jackson-Magnuson bill in the Senate that would create a national park in the North Cascades of 570,000 acres, considerably below our 1,300,008 acres. But he came out with that proposal and said he would introduce that. And he did introduce it, and but not before he got the okay from the chairman of the Interior Committee of the House of Representatives. Well, he was not a wilderness man. He was a mining man, and he also was much in favor of getting water to Arizona to get their agriculture going there. So Jackson somehow encouraged him to come out to the state of Washington, to hold a hearing in the state of Washington, because Jackson had held almost all his hearings in the state of Washington. I can't remember the name of the chairman now, and I tried to go back in my mind to try to remember who he was. But he was very opposed to this whole idea. And so we had some opposition from a small group of people that were thinking that what they wanted was maybe we should build some ski areas in this area that's there. Well, there wasn't really any place that you could build say a ski area that would be comparable to what we already had in the state of Washington. So they were opposed to it, and they were kicking up quite a stir. We began to think that, well, we're going to have some opposition at this particular hearing. And so we got organized, and one man, our president at the time, Patrick Goldsworthy, he was the one that started to work on different groups and organizations. We've got to have you people get out. We got to have the numbers there to testify for this thing, because we're going to have some opposition there. Well, among other things, he really worked on the Mountaineers, which had a big membership, and they had become quite enthused about the idea too. I mean, everybody was, as I say, we'd build up a parade for this. But so the meeting was held in what was then the Benjamin Franklin Hotel. I don't know what it is right now, but it isn't the Benjamin Franklin, but it's down near the center of Seattle. He came into the meeting and he looked at the numbers we had developed there, and he said, "Who the hell are all these people? What are they doing here?" Well, we had several hundred people that testified on that. In my own mind, I think it's 700, but I wouldn't vouch for that. But we had several hundred people that came to testify for the park. There were 70 people that were testifying against it. So he had a 2-day hearing because he couldn't get this over in one day. And he had, Congressman Meads, who I had recruited for the park years before. I had attended a meeting of the Young Democrats in the state of Washington, in Snohomish County rather, and shown my pictures that I had taken, slides that I had taken of the Cascades, and showed it to them, and then afterwards got in the point where they were asking questions about things, and one of the fellows up there said, well, what do you think of Jack Westland, who was our congressman at the time, who was very anti the park area itself? And so I lit into Jack Westland. I really tore him apart as a congressman. And he had gone around the places where some people had said, well, what about the Glacier Peak Wilderness area or something? And he had just turned it all down, nothing. And and the prosecuting attorney in Snohomish County came up to me after the meeting and he said, I'm running against Jack Westland in this next election, which is going to be in coming November. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit here.
We can take oh, sorry. If you like, we can take a break and you can have some water or
no,
something.
That's fine.
Okay.
Now I've lost my train of thought. Oh, but he said he came up to me and said, I'm forming a committee. Would you be on my committee? And I said, sure. He was a Democrat running against him. That appealed to me too. And so I got on the committee. I then circulated all the conservationists I knew in, say, Jack Westland's district, and encouraged them to write, to vote for Lloyd Meads. So Lloyd Meads was now in Congress. He won that election. He was in Congress, and he had promised me at that particular meeting that if I'm elected, I will support you on your conservation efforts in the North Cascades. And he did. He got on the Interior Committee, and then, on the Interior Committee, he was there with, say, Mo Udall. Stuart Udall, of course, was, Secretary of Interior at the time, and probably the best Secretary of Interior that we ever had. And they then, because there were so many people wanting to testify, they went to a room upstairs and took testimony at that place, and was being taken down below. In the meantime, the second day of the meeting, this congressman called a certain person's name. Turned out to be a writer for the PI, and he berated him for the terrible article he had written about him in the PI the day before. So that was very unusual, because for a committee chairman to do that was just unheard of. That you'd take somebody from the press and do that to them. Well, it went back and to say the issues that were involved. One part I forgot to tell you about was that Stuart Udall, when he was, say, selected by Jack Kennedy to be Interior Secretary of Interior, had come out here and had looked over the area, and he had convinced Kennedy that he should go ahead and that they should have a study that would be made of this particular area. So it was formed. One member of the committee was going to be the secretary of, say, the chief ranger, who was Conrad Worth from the Park Service, and then from the Forest Service, they had another individual who represented them, and he was, I don't think I put his name down, but he was, say, I think he was a supervisor of the Mount Baker Forest. But, and then the third person was going to be the chairman of the recently formed Bureau of Outdoor Recreation. And that particular group had just been formed because they wanted to do some things with, more things with recreation than they were doing in the Kennedy administration. And so, so here it was, a situation where there was a 2-to-1 split. 2 members of the Interior Committee and one from 2 members